I'm Walt Thiessen, the Crypto Skeptic. Let's talk crypto. And my special guest today is Arvin Khamseh. He and I were just chatting before we got started here about what's been going on lately with the crypto markets. So today's podcast is quite apropos given what's going on. And he was telling me he's like in demand right now. All the networks want him because they want commentary on what's going on with this. I like the way you said it. You said it in a very gentle way. I called it a bloodbath, but I think you called it something like chaos or something like that. I forget what you said. Yeah, but it's interesting times. I think that was one phrase you used, and that's a good way of describing it. Very interesting times. So anyway, thank you for joining me today on the podcast, Arvin.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. And well, first of all, since we do have this topic going on of basically a collapse going on in cryptocurrencies, I got to ask you the question: Are you affected directly? I mean, is it hitting your portfolio?
Oh yeah, 100%. So. Yeah, I mean, not so much with Luna. So Luna crash just recently happened for people who just are not aware of it. But
honestly, most of my listeners don't even know what Luna is. I mean, I should give you the lay of the land here. Yeah, I know about this stuff. Listeners don't. So
the Luna crash happened in May. Actually happened. One of the NFT projects I was working with, it happened same day they were actually doing their sales.
Lovely.
I know. They couldn't have picked a better time.
Right.
So that obviously impacted a lot of people. And then I guess just give you like a rundown of some of the things that are happening. So so Celsius, one of the major platforms, a lot of people have, they stake on it. They have their money in it. So they completely paused all withdrawals from all the accounts that they have.
It's a trading platform, basically. It's like a
trading platform.
Right.
And then we've got I believe Coinbase, if I'm not mistaken, they laid off about 18% of their employees, like all over LinkedIn. Everyone was just posting about them.
That's another one. That's another big brokerage.
Yeah, and then we've got I believe not. Maybe it was the NFT Fi. Oh no, not NFT Fi, but Coin. There's a Nexo competitor. So it's the another one similar to. They're all just essentially impacted, right? So like that's basically the high level of the story. But there's another exchange also. They've laid off about 18 to 20% of their employees, of the workforce as well.
Yeah.
And then SEC is after a bunch of these exchanges, including Binance,
which is a huge one. That's one of the biggest ones.
Exactly. So in 2017, they had their 15 million raise, their ICO, the initial coin offering, and then they essentially SEC saying that was a security, so that they can't be that. So if they prove it to be the case, then that's also gonna be a mess on its own.
That's huge.
And then there's an announcement by Fed to increase the interest rate by half a percentage. That will also, so the fear of that to essentially Fed's increasing the interest rate to be able to control the inflation. That the fear of that happening is also impacting the market. So exchanges are kind of in a really tough place with the government being, I guess, the SEC being after them. The Bitcoin, as it's going, I believe it's like 18-month low prices. Ethereum is down by about maybe 50%. So anyways, everything is just on a decline, right? So NFTs on its own is on a decline as well. So like I believe the blue chip collections, maybe the top 10, they're down by maybe 40%, 50% as well. So the people who are just new to this, obviously sometimes they don't even know about this, right? So they're coming in,
most people, I would say.
Yeah, they're coming in, buying things at a highly, highly discounted price. It's amazing. And then the people who obviously were in it and we're impacted, if we're like tourists, we're gonna go, then we obviously lost money and that's it. We move on to the next thing, right? The people who are just coming in, if they choose wisely and they buy into things that are, at a discounted price, not only just to make profits, but sometimes also like when it comes to NFTs, maybe they just want to buy NFTs that are just maybe they were expensive at one point and now they're not, right? So that's also cool. Like they're just collectors, they want to buy NFTs, but now the prices are just more reasonable for them. So anyways, that's a good time for them. That's a really good time for them. And then for people who've made good decisions on like holding on to things that they like, over once this resets, recovers, it's going to be a good time for people in that I guess category as well. When that's going to happen, who knows? But
well, if it's going to happen, I think is another part of the question.
yeah, there's that too. Of course, I'm on the. I would just tell you, my stance is on the side of actually building, going even harder in this market. And whether it be the crypto, so I have obviously a crypto portfolio, also NFT portfolio. So on both of them, I'm actually going harder, and building. And the Web3 space also just is a place where a lot of people were just coming in just thinking it's this shiny object, and a lot of them are just already gone. So I'm actually excited because of like the innovations and everything that we can do in this market. So that's my stance on this. It's not something that everyone should do. I think people who are thinking about, spending their rent money on like cryptocurrency.
No, do not spend your rent money. No.
Right. Bad idea. Right. So if you can't afford to lose it, don't do it. Like just do other things that,
this is a purely speculative market and you have to treat it as
exactly
such.
Very volatile. Very volatile. Yeah. It's no fun. It's no fun to just, see this just going up and down that much. Right.
Not good for the blood pressure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give people an idea, back in November, the entire crypto market was valued at around $3 trillion. It's now valued at 956 billion by coin market cap. It's like, wow, that's a drop.
Yeah, that's a huge drop. And also like back in November, I believe it was the peak of its like for the cryptocurrencies. I think Bitcoin was somewhere around maybe 60, almost got close to like 60. And then Ethereum was a lot higher, and it's not the case anymore, but all good.
Yeah, crypto's down to about 23 now, I think, something like that. But yeah, it's seen better days. The thing that's really interesting to me, there are a number of things interesting to me in this whole scenario, and they are factors that led me to want to create this special segment on the LOA Today podcast, because this is kind of separate from the regular podcast. One is the long-held claim by advocates of Bitcoin in particular, and Bitcoin, you kind of have to treat it as a separate animal from the rest of the cryptocurrency market, I believe.
Yeah.
But one of the big points, and one of the big selling points from the beginning, because I was aware of Bitcoin from 2008, unlike most people, one of the big selling points was this is going to be the new inflation hedge. This is going to be the new gold. So that whenever the Fed starts to do what they're doing right now, start to edging the rates up and so forth, everybody's going to flee to Bitcoin. And exactly the diametric opposite has happened. In other words, precisely the opposite of what they said was going to happen is actually what's happening. I think and that's exactly what I predicted at the time. I mean, I was one of the ones who didn't bother to mine it because I said, this is a nonsense scheme going on. I'm not going to be a part of this thing. Well, in hindsight, I probably should have done it anyway just to sell it, but that's another story entirely. But the point is that this is a huge selling point, and it's not proving out to be true at all.
Right. And also I would add to that the concept that a lot of people just bought into for Bitcoins. Again, reasons for getting into NFTs and cryptocurrencies, that's a very important
it's huge.
Very important subject. Like why getting into it? It's very important to really pay attention to that for people if they, they're thinking of getting into it, or they're kind of into it, they want to go in more. The reason is really important. So one of the things that a lot of people in the cryptocurrencies, well, especially Bitcoins, they were telling, again, I'm also invested in Bitcoin, like I still have a lot, but one of the things that doesn't seem to be true also is, if you just hold long enough, then you'll see the increase, right? So that's not necessarily the case. Like the
Right.
concept of just holding on long enough and you will reap the rewards. That's right now it's not the case, right? So like in fact, we don't know how long this will go, right? If it's going to go lower. In fact, if for example, the interest rate goes by I believe it's actually like by 1%. If the increase is by 1%, the Bitcoin could go down like below 20K.
Oh,
And
easily.
yeah,
Sure.
so and then the Ethereum could go below like 1100, 1200. So
Easily.
yeah, so that's yeah. Some people even say like 800. So that's what could happen, right? But then if it doesn't happen, like if it's not increased by that much, let's say if it's 0.5% or like a lot less than that, then there's a chance that there's this actually it may go up.
Well,
Again,
I think you made a really important point. You
yeah,
said that there are two different reasons for people to get involved, and
yeah,
and if I could outline what those reasons are, what I think they are is first, it's the one major reason that really draws people in the first place, crypto as currency, and then the second reason is the technology behind crypto as a data storage medium. And they're really very different topics, but because they've all kind of come under the rubric of Bitcoin, which is originally designed to be a currency, they all kind of merge together and the boundaries get blurred, so to speak.
yeah. And I was even say that, for example, let's take the case for Afghanistan right now. So they after the takeover by Taliban, they so the people in the country, they can't withdraw more than five. I believe it's $200 per day, and then for personal, and then $2,000 per week for business.
Mm, mm.
So okay, so that's a big problem. Like
Oh yeah,
that's obviously
that
not just like maybe growing a business. That's like
that
survival.
that that's living, yeah,
Yeah,
surviving,
like basic
yeah.
needs, right? So bitcoins and cryptocurrencies will solve that problem because now they can actually, and they've a lot of people actually reported they are living and are able to function because they have access to the digital currencies. They can get paid. They can do things that banks are not letting them do, right? So that's right there. That's a value that this is providing. It's got nothing to do with someone getting into cryptocurrencies because they think like Bitcoin price is going to go up. It's the point of like, okay, banks are not going to provide what they need. The transactions need to happen for their survival. And so what else do we do? Like that's the only solution.
Mm.
So that in that case, see, that's a very different story. Same thing with NFTs as well. So
And by the way, we've tried to identify what these terms mean in the
oh,
past here
cool,
on the
cool.
show, but let's actually go into a little bit more. Let's redefine what an NFT is for the
Cool.
audience.
So NFTs stands for non-fungible tokens. So it could be a moment of time. It could be an audio, video, image, and that is stored and I guess submitted on the blockchain. Just blockchain. If you guys don't know what that is, just think about like a major database where just like think about a Google Doc that everyone has access to. Everyone can see it, very transparent. Every transactions that happen, everyone's able to see it. And so I guess the common perception of NFTs is that if you just type out NFTs even on Google, what you'll see is a bunch of profile pictures of animals that people think, okay, so these are just some expensive JPEGs, so these images that they can screenshot, right? So that's what majority of people think of NFTs if they know what NFTs are. Most people don't even know what NFTs are. And so,
And for good reason, because I mean, let's be honest, they are an abstraction. They are an abstraction that has been turned into code, and now all of a sudden we're trying to turn this abstraction into something real that we can all tangibly get our hands around.
get answer, yeah. And so now, but then if you think about like the actual like problems that NFTs solve, it's far beyond just buying and selling a bunch of profile pictures. And so, for example, in the fashion industry, the concept of authenticity is really a big problem. So let's say you buy a handbag, not you, I'm just saying, like if someone buys a
It's not my
handbag,
color.
yeah, handbag of like Prada, then it's really important if you're buying something of that, I guess like with that pricey, let's say a few $1,000s that you pay for a handbag. It's very important to know that okay, that is the actual authentic handbag that you're buying, right? So again, not everyone has to buy expensive handbags, but the people who do, it's very important for them to know that they're buying the authentic version, not the fake version, right? So currently, even the companies themselves, they have troubles. Like there actually been like a lot of reports in New York City of like major companies. The employees themselves had trouble actually authenticating what's the real, what's not real, right?
Oh yeah.
So
Counterfeiting's been an issue for many years now, and it's gotten worse over time.
Right. Now, with NFTs, we can solve that problem. And we can actually understand, so we can see who the creator is, what transactions happen, what the price was, how the price has changed for that specific piece of item. Now, NFTs, again, they are non-fungible, meaning they cannot be duplicated, they cannot be replicated. So there's only one version of them. Okay. So that's really good because that solved that problem. There are a lot of other.
Well, let me put a little bit of a clarification on here, because I think it's always dangerous to say, well, it solved the problem. It certainly contributes to solving the problem, but I mean, it's not like it's impossible for some scam artists to come along and find a way to fake somebody into thinking that they're seeing an actual NFT when they're not seeing an NFT. I mean, there are lots of different ways that scam artists, for instance, never try to break into an SSL connection. They go around through the back door. They know that they can't beat the algorithm for the SSL. So they say, well, screw that. We've got to hire other ways to go in there. And I'm sure the same kind of thing will happen with NFTs. What NFTs do is they give you a way to provide a level of validation, of verification that you didn't have before. And that is useful.
The level of verification and validation, of course, it's very useful. As far as the scams and hacks, I mean, we've just, I believe last year, if I'm not mistaken, there was an increase I think it was under Biden. There was an increase in the actually funding for the zero trust concept. Which is essentially, companies, they need to abide by specific rules. They need to be compliant by specific rules so they don't get hacked. Like we had really major issues last year, for example, like a water provider organization got hacked, and then the water was actually contaminated, but not to the impact, not to the level that it would impact people, but that was a very scary thing, right? So
sure.
So hacking and being hacked in the cybersecurity has been actually the demand for cybersecurity and just being able to protect yourself online, that actually has grown significantly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's been around, that's not new. But so when it comes to NFTs, and also one of the latest projects I just worked with, I believe it was a month and a half ago. First few hours, we lost about 600K. So money that was generated from the sales of the NFTs went to a wallet that didn't have so it wasn't a multi-sig wallet, didn't have you
gotta tell people what that is, because remember, they don't know.
Yeah, so essentially multi-sig wallet would look like a crypto wallet that prompts you to use multiple ways to authenticate yourself. So meaning by emails, by code that's sent to your phone, and that's different than a wallet, a crypto wallet that you can just send money and receive money without authenticating yourself.
So it's not going to be completely unfamiliar to somebody who's ever accessed their bank account through a website. They have different ways that they're having to authenticate themselves. It's kind of similar to that.
Multi-factor authentication, right. That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, so that was the problem. We didn't have that, and we got hacked, 600K lost, right? Now we have about 2 million collection size right now in NFTs. As of last month, we were actually getting about 500 new NFTs coming out every day. just on Ethereum blockchain alone. So we have other blockchains as well. And so there's a lot of NFTs, and there were a lot of them were scams. There were a lot of them that didn't even make it. Sometimes even they scam people unintentionally, meaning like they wanted to, they had a good purpose, they had a good intention, they didn't make enough money, and then they couldn't actually deliver on their promises. So that's a scam. That's still considered a scam, but not that like something that they intentionally wanted to do that, right? So that's just how it happened. They're just newbies. They're not really business people.
It was a good intention scam.
Exactly, good intentions scam. And so to say like the NFTs are a scam, I mean, I don't know if that's the case. Like NFTs, it's just
well, that's
like,
why I was trying to distinguish before.
right.
I think it's important to distinguish between use cases, because you made a really great point there. There's
Right.
the currency use case, and then there's the data storage use case. And
Right.
data storage is really a very different topic. It's a very useful topic for the reasons
Exactly.
we were talking about here.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
it's
Right.
not the same thing as currency.
No,
I think
it's not.
I think we have to distinguish between the two. When we can distinguish and say, okay, an NFT is just about how do we store stuff. It has nothing to do with it being money or not. It's just how do we store stuff. Now it becomes a different kind of topic, a different kind of conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the whole point, is that NFTs, they have lots of different use cases. So the one that's commonly known by most people is buying and selling these like cool looking animals. That's what people know it of, if they know what NFTs are. But there's far more beyond.
It's really
what,
anything you can store in a database is what it amounts to.
there's that. There's also like a lot of other things. So for example, let's say SaaS companies, software as a service companies, they've actually calculated to see if they use NFTs to sell their services, whether they make more money or they don't. And they actually happen to make way more money with introduction of NFTs. Again, has nothing to do with just having a, let's say, a profile picture of an animal on your Twitter, selling it, buying it, pump and dumping it. It has nothing to do with any of that. The purpose of the reason that's actually working for these software companies to have NFTs incorporated into their business is because the level of distribution that they get access to that they wouldn't have otherwise. So growing community with NFTs is something that we can do that's far better than not using the NFTs, right? So so that's that. There's like many other reasons to use NFTs. That's why NFTs, like, again, that's the reason my stance on NFTs, that the NFTs are staying. They're not going anywhere. But if for people who are just thinking about like, okay, for example, the blue chip collections are like, prices are going down, so NFTs, time, I guess the ecosystem is just collapsing. I mean, that's what it looks like if you're thinking about it. But
well, again, that's because we aren't distinguishing between currencies and data storage. They are very different, but we're treating that we, the marketplace, are treating them as if they're all part of the same thing. And I think the reason the marketplace is doing that is because most people get into the marketplace not because of the data storage, but because, oh, wow, there's this new currency thing and a lot of people are making money in it, and I'm going to get in there and make a lot of money on it. They don't necessarily know anything about it. They're just like, oh, it's money. Okay, let's go do this money thing.
Shiny object as well. Yeah. So like, I mean, the whole Web3 concept is very shiny object for a lot of people. So in October 2021, Facebook, what now is called Meta, they announced the Metaverse, right? So the company actually, well, they announced Meta, and then they talked about Metaverse and what that would look like. And so past that time, a lot of people actually realized, okay, so this the concept of Metaverse, doing things virtually, and the Web3 is actually going to be a real thing, because Meta has billions of people in its distribution, and so it will make it widespread, just like how.
Let me also be a little bit clear here too. That's the speculative belief. It is not a given. It is a belief that many people have about Meta. I'm actually one of those who think that the whole Meta thing is a little bit off the rocker. But you're right. There are a lot of people who do believe that that A is going to lead to B, that because Meta/Facebook has this huge built-in audience, that therefore their metaverse view is going to become a reality. But A doesn't necessarily lead to B. We have lots of history cases of major companies that launched major products. I mean, that were basically, we now have a word for it. We call them Edsels for a very good reason, because the Edsel, which was this was like the big thing that the Ford company was going to do in the mid 20th century, and it almost broke the company because it just was not accepted by the marketplace. So we got to be a little bit careful about saying, well, yes, it's going to happen. I wouldn't want to say it's going to happen.
Oh, no. So, okay. So what I'm telling you and your audience, I'm not saying that this is the truth. I'm saying this is my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. That's fine.
People can form their own opinions, and they should do their own research, and understand things, the way that, will serve them best for their life.
Course.
My opinion is that because Facebook has a large distribution, given how Facebook made the whole concept of like Web 2 really widespread. So meaning the concept where people, like, let's say Facebook itself, just the example of that Web 2 being widespread, Facebook will show you content based on information it has from you, right? So for example,
I think we all know that.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you just even talking about like hotels, a few hours later you're gonna see ads about hotels on your feed, right? They've done a lot of weird experiments too, but this is like the prime example of it. So they've made that widespread just because of their distribution. Right. My opinion is that they will make Metaverse as widespread as well.
I think they will, but that doesn't mean that it takes hold.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a given they're going to try to build this thing out. But just like Ford tried to build the Edsel, they're going to build their Metaverse. The question is, will the public buy it? And I'm not so sure the public's going to buy it.
My stance on it that they will. And reason again for that is just because of how many public companies, how many large companies I'm seeing that they're actually moving to that space. Again, we may not just in like a few months just seeing people, date virtually and like do everything that they will do on a daily basis virtually in the Metaverse. But the concept that, let's say, we do Zoom calls all day long, and we've done it especially because of COVID. The concept that becomes more immersive, just like how like Mark Zuckerberg describes it, where it's more so than like more of like a 3D experience than just like, let's say, 2D. Those things are very easy to transition to for people.
I think that's true. And yeah. I do think that we're going to get some version of that. The question that we're addressing here is whether it will be Metaverse's version that will take the stage. And, since we're talking about Zuckerberg, I'll point out that Zuckerberg wiped out MySpace, which was supposed to be the social media channel. Whereas MySpace today, it's basically non-existent because Facebook came along and wiped them out. So just because MySpace had the market share, they had practically the total market. Just because you have the total market doesn't mean you're going to govern the market space. You can put your product out, but the public still has to buy it, and somebody else can come along and perhaps offer something that the public likes better. I mean, Facebook has been doing video conferencing for quite some time. Zoom came out of nowhere and zoomed to the top, and Facebook has not been able to do anything about that, much to their consternation. They're trying desperately to regain control of the direct face-to-face communication that Zoom provides. They haven't been able to do it, and they're the biggest company, in other than Google on the planet. So, size actually doesn't drive it. Size certainly gives you resources, but size does not drive whether or not you actually gain favor in the marketplace. And I think that's what we all have to kind of keep in mind.
So are you saying that the I guess what is your stance on that?
Metaverse is what I see as a Facebook registered trademark. That's their thing. Their name of their company is Meta. They're basically positioning themselves as the Meta company. Right. And their play is the idea that, well, we are going to be the Meta company, so everybody's going to come through us. And I think that's a false assumption. I think it's actually a rather arrogant assumption, to be honest.
That's not what I was talking about. So what I'm talking about is
we're using their terms. You're using the word Meta. That Meta is there. So we kind of, if we're going to say we're not talking about Facebook, then let's say we're not talking about Facebook.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is the concept that the metaverse, whatever version of it comes through, whether be it by, well, I mean, we already have multiple versions of it, right? So there's Decentraland, there's Sandbox, there's many versions of it. So it's not necessarily just done by Facebook, first of all. And whatever versions of it come through, which I believe, my opinion again, it will. Whatever versions of it come through, it will have NFTs as its constituents, like as its like parts.
Certainly, it's going to play a role. Yeah.
Right. And so, well, no, that is the rule. Like, you can't have pieces into the metaverse other than NFTs. Like, how else can you have like a character? So that's the only way you can have it. So that's one of the reasons that I believe NFTs will stay, just because of this, again, speculation that this is my opinion, thinking that this will happen, whether it be at Facebook or any other platform.
I think that's true. I think NFTs are going to be. I'm not sure that they are going to be the play, but they are certainly going to be a player. It's going to be, and it's probably going to be a major role. What that role is going to look like, I don't think any of us can really say at this point. It's too early in the game, but certainly there's going to be a role played there. I do want to get back to the currency side of it, though, because that was really the motivation for me to create this segment on the podcast, because that's really the side of things that I think those people who know something about it, they don't necessarily know a whole lot about this whole cryptocurrency thing, but that's the part they're aware of. And that's the part that's driving the whole craziness that's been going on in the speculative marketplace. I mean, it's all being, it's fun to say that NFTs are driving it, but honestly, NFTs really aren't driving it. They're driving a small piece of it, but from the perspective, of the overall public, I mean, like we were saying before, the public doesn't even know what the NFTs are. All they know is, oh, there's this cryptocurrency thing. So that's really what's driving the train right now. And I think it's going to be driving it for quite some time, even if it drives it into the ground. So I want to get back to that topic for a moment. I want to ask your opinion about, where do you see the currency side of things going, both in the short term and in the long term?
Yeah. So are we talking about NFTs or are we talking about cryptocurrencies?
We're talking currency at this point.
Currency. Okay, cool. So, I mean, it's very much, I would say it's very much dependent on the few things that are happening this month and next month, and like, I guess the next few months. So all these investigations that are happening with companies like Coinbase, if even one or two of them, they go not so favorably for the, I guess, for the exchange platforms, that could be really catastrophic for the entire like crypto communities, because once they get one exchange, and I guess, you know, Binance, even though right now they're under investigation by SEC, they've also been under investigation, but like many other countries, not even like US. Like there was England, there was maybe even Vietnam, so many other countries. So the
European Union, I believe, has been getting a lot of attention.
So they've been okay, like they've been fine, right? So it's not like it's the end of the world. And also, even like the examples of like SEC going after things, it's also not a new thing. They just always, whenever there's like a lot of money, they just find a way to go after it. But so if that for any reason goes south for any of these companies, that could bring the cryptocurrencies down, at least momentarily, like to a very significant, like there would be a very significant decline, because that's just how this market would react to it. And
so you're pretty bearish on the short term.
Yeah. And but I would also say, again, personally, I will be a holder regardless, and I will hold throughout the whole, I guess, experience. Now, if obviously something other than what I would expect right now and what I'm talking about would happen, maybe I'll change my mind. But even though I'm seeing all these I guess things that are happening with both Binance, Ripple, XRP, I believe even like Polkadot had some challenges last year. I don't know if they still do, and so they all have been under investigations with regulations. And I mean, last year, or maybe it was beginning of this year, like FBI created a new task force for just like cryptocurrency problems, right? So there's like a very huge increase in the regulations and compliance. So as that's increasing, the margin in profit for traders will go down, first of all. And then as that's also increasing, then there's just more, it just becomes a lot tighter for these exchanges to be able to function, just like how like, what is it? The one that's, was it Coinbase? I can't remember. The one that's just like having trouble with the liquidity. Anyway, so
a number of them are, but I'm not sure which one you're thinking
there's
of.
one that's like currently having trouble with liquidity. But yeah, so basically it's very much dependent on how some of these investigations will go. I would say if we are going through recessions and already, or if it's gonna come soon, that's just gonna happen. Like that's not really the biggest factor. I would say the biggest factor out of all is really just the investigations on these like exchanges and how that goes, and then how the compliance will grow. Again, like inflations are higher, so the Feds will just change things on that. As far as the all these I guess workforce being laid off, it just scares the market. They keep like all these whales just pulling their money out. But from, again, personal experience, people that I like, the whales I know, the people that like huge investors of Bitcoins, and I really mean like huge. I don't mean like just a few 100,000. They're actually
bosses of the bosses of the world.
Right. They're actually right now. They're just right now, from what I know personally, them like from them, they're actually buying into Bitcoins right now. Again, not necessarily saying this is the right thing to do for everyone to do, or like buying into it, or like selling into it. None of that. But that is what's happening right now. And so my personal take on, just because I know, again, NFT is going to be a big player, and NFTs are the transactions with NFTs just happen on a specific like it's either going to be on Ethereum, Solana, or any of those platforms. And with, like, let's say Ethereum 2.0 coming out in maybe August, if they do, who knows? So there's certain like improvements that are going to come through that I'm very excited about. I think it has some bright future as far as like technology. So like just Polkadot just created all the connections between the blockchains. Ethereum 2.0 is just trying to solve a lot of scale and speed and security problems. So
I got to cut in here because I'm running out of time here for the show.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we get this in there, because you have a mastermind that we need to talk about for about 2 minutes before we sign off. So tell us about the mastermind, sold out NFTs.
Cool. Yeah. So because there's, again, this is the bear market now. Maybe a bear market when people listening to this, maybe not, right? Regardless, there's a huge value in people who are starting their NFT collections, whether it be it developers, whether it be it artists themselves, or just business folks that they want to get into this NFT Web3 space. I've created this mastermind where people can, like, founders can come together, and then we essentially build a map as we go. So they're not any, like, we don't have like mentors, we don't have schools, we don't really have books or courses on this. And so we are doing things like we're actually selling out collections, and then we're sharing those knowledge with each other and giving each other feedback. And I have my own collection actually coming out in a week as well. And so there's a lot of value in people just being together in this, especially in this bear market, and even past bear market, if they just don't want to waste time and money. So that's the purpose that I created this mastermind, where I want people to be together, not just learn from me. Even though I've worked with 400 plus NFT projects, I have a lot to offer to people, but I just want people to be able to be close to each other and just learn from each other, and be able to actually sell out their collections. Not, again, just because there's monetary value, but sometimes these are artists that they want to actually get the word out for their art.
Sure.
Right? So
okay. And if somebody wants to get involved, how do they find it?
Yeah, so if they go to soldoutnfts.io, so that's soldnfts.io, they can learn more about the mastermind, the program that I have, and then on all socials as well, Arvin K NFT. So that is ARVIN K NFT. They can find me, send me a DM on Twitter especially, or LinkedIn if they want to find me over there as well. Happy to chat about their project as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on the show. We'll make sure that we include that in the show notes so people can just click the link to get over there.
Cool.
But thank you for taking the time to talk about this. I wish we had more time, but it just didn't work out for us to be able to do that. But
Thanks
we
for having
appreciate
me.
it. Yeah, thanks for being on. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on The Crypto Skeptic and LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.